If you would both please rise.
A busy day 3 of public impeachment hearings into Donald Trump divided into 2 parts. First up, testimony from Jennifer Williams, an aide to Vice President Mike Pence, and Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, the White House National Security Council's top Ukraine expert.
Thank you, and you may be seated.
Both witnesses were among the U.S. officials who listened in on the July 25th phone call that's at the center of the impeachment probe, in which Trump asked the Ukrainian president to carry out 2 investigations that would benefit the U.S. president politically, including one targeting Democratic political rival Joe Biden.
I found the July 25th phone call unusual because, in contrast to other presidential calls I had observed, it involved discussion of what appeared to be a domestic political matter.
I was concerned by the call. What I heard was inappropriate. It is improper for the President of the United States to demand a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen and a political opponent.
Trump has repeatedly said the call was perfect. Vindman testified he was so disturbed by the call that he reported it to the top lawyer at the National Security Council out of a sense of duty.
President Trump put his own personal and political interests above those of the nation.
Democrats like Adam Schiff are working to make the case that Trump tried to use $400 million in frozen U.S. aid to Ukraine and a White House visit as leverage to pressure Ukraine into carrying out the investigations, something they had described as a quid pro quo, but have more recently labeled as bribery. Republicans pushing back.
You've never used the word bribery or bribe to explain President Trump's conduct, correct?
No, sir.
Colonel Vindman, you haven't either.
That is correct.
The number of times witnesses have used the word bribery or bribe to describe President Trump's conduct in the last 6 weeks of this inquiry is 0.
Your fact witnesses. It will be our job to decide whether the impeachable act of bribery has occurred. That's why we don't ask you those questions.
Throughout Tuesday's hearing, Republicans questioned Vindman's credibility and his loyalty. The decorated Army combat veteran is an American citizen who was born in Ukraine. During the testimony, the White House posted a tweet aimed at discrediting him, posting, "Tim Morrison, Alexander Vindman's former boss, testified in his deposition that he had concerns about Vindman's judgment."
Your boss had concerns about your judgment. Your former boss, Dr. Hill, had concerns about your judgment. Your colleagues had concerns about your judgment.
I'll start by reading Dr. Hill's own words, as she attested to in my last evaluation that was dated middle of July, right before she left. Alex is a top 1% military officer and the best Army officer I have worked with in my 15 years of government service.
And Williams responded to a question about a tweet posted by Trump on Sunday, in which he said in part she should meet with the other never-Trumpers.
Are you a never-Trumper?
I'm not sure I know an official definition of a never-Trumper.
Would you describe yourself that way?
I would not, no.
I don't know any of these people other than I have seen one or two a couple of times. They're ambassadors.
Donald Trump distancing himself from those testifying in the public impeachment hearings Tuesday after saying he did watch some of the morning's proceedings with the day's 2 first witnesses. The U.S. president also slamming the Democrat-led inquiry.
What's going on is a disgrace, and it's an embarrassment to our nation.
Trump speaking before part 2 of Tuesday's hearing with 2 witnesses requested by Republicans. Kurt Volker, the former special envoy to Ukraine, and Tim Morrison, a former top National Security Council official. Morrison was among the U.S. officials who was listening in on the July 25th phone call at the heart of the impeachment probe, in which Trump asked the Ukrainian president to look into the U.S. president's domestic political rival, Joe Biden.
And shortly after you heard the July 25th call, you testified that you alerted the NSC legal advisor, John Eisenberg, pretty much right away. Is that right?
Correct.
And you indicated in your opening statement, or at least from your deposition, that you went to Mr. Eisenberg out of concern over the potential political fallout if the call record became public and not because you thought it was illegal. Is that right?
Correct.
But you would agree, right, that asking a foreign government to investigate a domestic political rival is inappropriate, would you not?
It's not what we recommended the president discuss.
Volker was not in on the call and says he did not know the Ukraine corruption probe was tied to Biden.
I think the allegations against Vice President Biden are self-serving and not credible. Separate question is whether it is appropriate for Ukraine to investigate possible corruption of Ukrainians that may have tried to corrupt things or buy influence. To me, they are very different things. And as I said, I think the former is unacceptable. I think the latter, in this case, is
Understood.
Trump has repeatedly denied wrongdoing. The investigation could lead the Democrat-controlled House to approve formal charges against Trump, called articles of impeachment, that would be sent to the Republican-controlled Senate for a trial on whether to remove him from office. But it currently appears unlikely that Republicans would support the move. Public hearings will continue this week. One high-profile witness, U.S. Ambassador to the European Union Gordon Sondland, is set to testify Wednesday.